Hello, everyone. This is Allison Gross, and you haven't heard from me for a very, very long time. Um, I have been very busy, perhaps, as we are now learning, pointlessly busy. Um, but it's also just like depression, is why you haven't heard from me. I do have stuff that I've recorded, like, we are 90% done with Gothic now. We have like one, maybe two complete Let's Plays, shorter Let's Plays that we've recorded. Um, that just I haven't posted at all just because I can't motivate myself to care. So you might ask yourself, why are you wearing that? And I'm wearing this because this is a bad mock up. And when I say mock up, I don't mean an actual mock up, I mean like a thing that I've put together with stuff around the house that's like the closest facsimile that I could put together with stuff around the house of my wedding dress. And that's why I'm doing this today and why I'm especially depressed today. Because I was to get married today, and clearly things did not work out. I've tried many times in my life, and this is the closest I ever got. So, trying to prepare for that and everything was one of the things that I was busy about. Needlessly busy. The other thing is the fact that oh god, I left those headphones in. I'm an idiot. Uh, that had me busy was I was working on my PhD, and I did finish that. Um, and that is a big part of why I haven't been posting, is because of the PhD. I finished it. I don't have the actual PhD. Like, I have a complete dissertation. I do not know when or if I will have an actual PhD, because I know I made an announcement years back about how I was getting a PhD. I don't know if I mentioned how I was getting it. I was getting it from the university that I work at in Romania, and so like going I don't have it right now because I haven't defended it yet, and that's because I can't go to Romania to defend it. Um, and the problem with that, like, normally if it was in the US, I'd just be like, okay, well, they understand that I can't go to Romania and defend it right now. But Romania is super weird about all of this. That, first of all, there's like several stages to the defense, and I have to do them in a certain order, and there have to be like certain time intervals between the stages. And they're also like really strict about the due date, apparently. And it's very, very, very hard for it to get moved. And this is the real thing, because normally, like, if I was getting a PhD in the US, um, the department or whatever, or just be like, okay, right, we're just gonna do the defense later. Nobody cares. But like Romania has a hard cutoff point. You have 3 years to do your PhD, and that's it. Which honestly is part of why I did it, because A, they expect you to do it that quickly, and B, because they expect you to do it that quickly, the requirements are a bit more lenient than in the US. And I just wanted to get it done. I just wanted to get the PhD. I didn't want to like wind up like bumming around taking like 8 or more years on it like people in the US do, like I've seen my friends do. So that was kind of the point when I originally went into the program. The problem is that like now obviously I may not like, and I completed the entire thing in a 3 year time period, but I may not be able to defend in that time period because I have like 2 or 3 months left before my 3 years is up. And I doubt that I'm going to be able to go to Romania by then. And because in Romania your university does not issue you a degree, the central federal government does. Like, even though they would absolutely want to give me a pass on this and just let me defend later, both because obviously like they know it's not my fault, and because they really like are invested in me getting this PhD for various other reasons, they would absolutely just give me a pass on the due date, but they can't because the central government makes those decisions. And so I put in 3 years of work with the PhD, and I don't know what is going to happen with it. But here's the thing, even if I could just defend it and everything would be fine with that, I don't know that it was worth it. The cost of the PhD was astronomical. And I'm talking about this because this is directly related to my channel and why I haven't been updating. The process of doing the PhD, like it was a massive amount of work, like just putting in that much intense work constantly, day after day after day for 3 years, just drained me. It put me under so much stress that I've kind of locked up emotionally. I haven't had time to do anything else in my life. Like, I haven't really been able to do my writing because all of my time has gone to writing a PhD. And it also like really like severely damaged, possibly permanently damaged my relationship because we just didn't have time to spend together. And he was also helping me with the PhD. I was having him like set up some data tables for me, but this was also really time consuming, so he was busy all of the time too. And it got to the point where we just never saw each other. We just never interacted. We have gotten, now that like I can afford it, we go on a cruise like every December, and this is supposed to be our relaxation and reconnect time and stuff. And I had gotten far enough ahead on my thing that I was able to take a break from the PhD while we were on the cruise this year, but last year, December 2019. But Fornius was not able to. He was working on the data table thing. The whole time we were on the cruise, he basically did it non-stop. I mean, to me, this didn't have to happen. It has to do with Phineas not being so great at budgeting his time, and so that's kind of how it worked out. But like, we were on this cruise. I paid like $5,000 or more for us to go in like a fucking suite, and then we just never talked to each other. And I didn't understand it fully at the time. I just knew that I was unhappy, but in retrospect, I've realized that I was just so heartbroken by that. And I just, I hate the way I look on camera. I mean, now I remember, for example, like, okay, so right now, we get groceries delivered, all the time for obvious reasons. And that's been its own source of stress, blah, blah, blah. I don't need to get into that. And what they do is they put frozen bottles of water in the bags with the groceries to help keep them cold. This story has a point. And the other day, I mean, this happened, I would feel weird about this even before this happened, but then one day, like, Fournier started drinking out of the bottles and talking about how he really likes drinking out of mostly frozen water bottles, and how, like, he would go hiking and blah, 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 blah. And every time I see those bottles, especially after he said that, all I can think about is when we went on the cruise in December, we stayed at this Airbnb, and I probably should have done this at a later point in time because I just woke up and thus I look shitty. Like, and me being me, I always do these elaborate, stupid things to save money, and so I made us take the bus to the Airbnb, and it involved, like, getting lost on buses and running around and walking for, like, ages in the Florida heat and stuff. We're never doing that again. So we finally got to the Airbnb, and one of the things that they had this little mini fridge where they also had like beer, which is totally what Fournier's went for, but they had like chilled water bottles waiting for you in this fridge. And after that long, day dragging our luggage around in the heat, we were just so glad to get those water bottles. And I just remember that, and I remember that feeling comfortable and it being the start of this trip, and I thought it was going to be great, and then and so every time now that we get groceries delivered and I see the water bottles, I just cry. Like, that's how bad it is. And like, I cannot get a good angle on this. Like, no matter what I do, it looks bad. So there was that cost. Those are things that theoretically I could heal from with the PhD. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, my personal damage, like, I'm gradually, I'm really immersing myself in, like, I'm doing a ton of yoga right now, and just taking some time, and if I have time to read and time to do personal stuff, maybe my creativity will come back, and things like that. And my relationship is harder to repair because it takes two people, but theoretically that could also be repaired. But there are also things from the PhD that damage that can never be fixed. Like, I have looked into the abyss, and the abyss has looked back, and I can't unsee what I saw. And this is where it directly relates to Let's Playing. I mean, part of it is, I just had to I hate spending time on computers. Like, I really hate it. Like, I have this whole thing where I feel like our entire world is, like, no longer real. Like, we just exist on these screens and all of this shit. But, and I've felt that way for years. And so, both because I just had to spend so much time on my computer writing the damn thing, and because since I was writing about video games, I had to spend a ton of time also like playing video games and watching like videos about video games, like commentary on YouTube and all of this other stuff to get data for the thing. It's just like I don't want to be on the computer a second longer than I have to anymore. I don't want to think about video games. I don't want to have anything to do with video games because I'm just so burned out. And that's also a thing that I think would at least semi heal itself with time. But it's also just shit I learned about the whole like gender and gaming debate, because that's what I did my PhD on, that pretty much both sides are just so horrendously disgusting. And I don't belong anywhere. And I'm not even like talking about Gamergate or anything like on the ground stuff. I mean, like, it was disturbing to learn how completely like anathema I am to these people. But more specifically, like, we have in these sort of like game scholars or game commentators people, on the one side we have like Lee Alexander, who's just like, oh my, and oh shoot, what is her name, the person that I really 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 hate and just want to just, I shouldn't say what I wanted to do with her, but god, I can't remember the other woman's name. She's the one that really 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 hates Anita Sarkeesian, and she wrote this entire thing like attacking her. Leanna Kersner, that's her name. So we've got Lee Alexander and Leanna Kersner, who are just basically like, it's incomprehensible that a woman could not be empowered by being sexualized. That, like, and the fact that, I mean, their argument is that they don't want sexualized representations of women in video games to go away because they personally find them empowering, pretty much. Which is all fine and great, and my argument had nothing to do with whether or not those representations should be there for people who find them empowering. My argument was there should be representations that are empowering for people who don't find that empowering. And it really bothers me because these people never consider, like, in their commentary, that somebody would not find that empowering, or I guess if they don't find that empowering, it's because they're repressed or something like that. So there's that, and then on the other side, we have people who, it goes way beyond like sexualized representations of women, and they just want to strip video games of everything. And you know, Anita Sarkeesian is the probably most well-known mainstream example. But when I read a lot of like works by game scholars and stuff, you have to do this for a PhD, and I came across Jennifer Hepler is another good example of somebody who's well known in the gaming community that takes that perspective. And I found a number of game scholars as well. That, like, their attitude is violence in games is bad, just, like, on principle. Like, any representation really of traditional masculinity in games is bad. Like, the whole idea of games as power fantasy is bad. And, my approach in my personal life, and this was, sort of what I was indirectly advocating in my dissertation, is that games being power fantasies is a good thing. Power fantasies serve a useful, healthy purpose to people. And the only problem that we have with games right now is that they don't, like, they only serve as power fantasies for a very narrow range of people, and that games, like, the content of games should be expanded so that, everyone can reap the benefits of power fantasy. And I feel like no one else really has this point of view, that there's the one side that's like Gamergate and also like Lana Kersner and Lee Alexander and stuff. That's basically like, there's nothing wrong with the way games are now, like allowing power fantasies for women who aren't sexualized, the insanity of it. And then the other side is like, having power fantasies at all is bad and we should completely get rid of them. Like, and I'm sorry I can't remember her name, but there's this one quote that this one game scholar said that really, really disturbed me. That she said that the equivalent, that the current context of games is the equivalent of going into a store, a toy store, and it sells nothing but Dungeons and Dragons and G.I. Joes. And I'm like, well, okay, sure, maybe we should have it sell other things, but what she's really advocating is not that we sell those things plus some toys for other people who don't gravitate towards those things. It's that we just don't sell those things at all. Because she goes on and she says the current selection of games offers no options for women or for men who do not want to play Rambo. And this leaves out a very significant group, which includes myself, which is women who do want to play Rambo. And so I feel like, a lot of people, there's been a lot of disruptions in the gaming community recently. And, well, not recently, but over the past, 5 or 6 years. And, some people have some hope, it's getting better. So more data on this was being released, to the day. I was adding new stuff even at the end because more stuff was happening. But, some people think that it's getting better, or at least it will eventually all sort itself out. But even if it sorts itself out, it's not going to do any good for me because I don't agree with any of the points of view that are being advocated. All of the perspectives in the debate, all of the claims about what we should do with video games leave me out. I'm not included in any of them. So that was pretty disillusionary to me because I've considered myself a gamer since I was 3. It's been a major part of my identity. Um, and, part of me feels like I don't want to be part of that anymore. I want to distance myself from it because all of the perspectives involved are just so ugly to me and so exclusionary to who I am. And it also, like, reading all of this stuff about, gender presentation and how it expresses itself in gaming and everything, it made me sort of, like, hyper critically aware of myself. Um, so, full disclosure, I have dissociative disorder. I think that's what it's called. I don't know what the official term is. It's where you feel like you're outside of your body. And you feel like you are back here and sort of watching yourself. And I've had that my entire life. It comes and goes. It varies in severity. Yeah, I don't look very good here. And one of the things that really, like, that made me really love doing Let's Plays initially was that, I would just sort of get into flow and do stuff without thinking. And it made me feel really present. My entire life is based around me trying to find things I can do that will make me feel present. And after, spending 3 years intensely where I look at video game content and the behavior of gamers with this, like, hyper acute critical lens, now when I go back and watch my old Let's Plays, I dissect my behavior. I can see how, I can see my like, the entire time that I've been Let's Playing, I do, gender identity tells, and I do gamer identity tells the entire time. And that, after doing my PhD and, feeling like I don't belong with any of this, I feel kind of ashamed and creeped out of that fact. Partly because my sense of self and my gender identity and stuff has changed a lot over the course of the PhD. I know that sounds really weird that it's like, my PhD changed my gender identity. It's I know that's weird. But, like, it made me become a lot more aware of things and, like, of basically, like, there's these assumptions of, like, masculine responses to games and feminine responses to games. And, my responses to games, like, I was able to map them so closely onto that, and it made so much sense and everything. But anyway, so the thing is that it's like, now I feel kind of uncomfortable about it because I see how I was, like, sending all these tells that were not necessarily what I want to send. And also now I can't just Let's Play and be in the moment because I'm overthinking everything I do. Like, what kind of a tell am I sending? Like, all of the time, like, I'm hyper aware of it now. Even just in my daily speech, like, this has also negatively impacted my relationship with Fornius because it's much harder for me to just, for example, like, okay, so one of the things that is a phenomenon, if you have been involved in, like, the gaming community or anything that's related, like comics or anything like that, you are aware of this concept about fake gamer girls who have to go like prove their authenticity and stuff. They have to establish their geek cred. And this is a dance that I've been dancing since I was like 14 or something. And so, and this is you'll notice this when you watch my Let's Plays, that I will offhandedly reference things related to, you know, gaming or Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or all kinds of stuff like that. Or I will use like specialized like gamer terminology randomly and things like that. And that's an identity tell. It's a thing that I just instinctively do now to quote quote perform my geek cred like all the time. I mean, it doesn't help that I spent 13 years married to a guy who was like hyper into that kind of thing and everything. But like, you know, now that I've looked at that whole phenomenon through an academic lens, I feel kind of like creeped out by that fact, and also because I don't know that that's an identity that I want to subscribe to anymore, because of the fact that like the gaming community doesn't actually include me, and it won't include me even if it reforms, because the other side is just as bad for me. I mean, in some ways they're worse, because like all of the like all the traditional gamers can do is hate me and think I'm ugly, which like I'm used to that. I've had a lifetime of it. But the other side, well, okay, that's all that they can do. The Lee Alexander and Lana Kersner can do more, as can the Anita Sarkeesians and Jennifer Heplers. What they can all do is tell me that I'm psychologically messed up and that I've been brainwashed by the patriarchy. Either to disavow my feminine sexuality because patriarchy has attached shame to it, or to falsely I idealize masculine values like aggression and violence and try to take them on myself because I denigrate my true femininity because our society does that. Like, it doesn't matter which side, like either one like shits on me. So yeah. Anyway, so I am desperately trying to sort out like it's far beyond just Let's Playing. Like, I don't know who I am anymore. I'm having an identity crisis because identifying as a gamer was such a strong part of who I am. Like, again, I started when I was 3, and everything like from my life has sort of built from that since then. Like, every single relationship I've ever been in was based around me being a gamer. Like, pretty much all of my potential relationships were also based around that. Like, just other than a few things like my religion and the fact that I like doing art, even though like also doing miniature painting is kind of related to that, which is also a form of art. It's just been part of this, and now like I feel like this is a thing I need to walk away from. And would I be able to like establish a new identity and then Let's Play authentically from that identity? I mean, I don't know. Maybe it would be possible. But I would have to establish a new identity first. And, you know, it's only like pretty much literally a month since I handed in my PhD. So I'm certainly not anywhere near that yet. I would also need to, you know, fix my relationship and figure out how like a new relationship would work as part of that as well, because it like that was part of, you know, my relationship. Like, we met via Let's Playing. The person that he encountered online and was attracted to was the person who was trying to perform this identity and sending out all these tells. And if that person doesn't exist anymore, like, what does that mean for our relationship? Can we build something different? And like, that would be a thing that we would have to figure out how to navigate, like, before we would do Let's Plays. Obviously, I don't want to stop because it was a big part of my life and it was fun, but I just don't know. And I also like, I'm also really disillusioned because at a certain point during all this stuff that was going on, I also tried to get really serious about my writing, and I read a bunch of stuff about how to try to advertise it, and it just seems so prohibitively impossible, especially for a person like me. But it also like drove home to me how like 90% of people on YouTube don't exist anymore. And that's, I mean, in that you don't exist because everything is so massive that no one will ever pay attention to you. And that's not like, oh, I want like people to make me rich from doing my Let's Plays. Like, I'm not even sure that any Let's Plays are worth that. Like, Let's Plays are things that, in my opinion, the creator should just do for fun, and other people should watch them because they're fun. But, you know, I would have liked some encouragement of people, that people were watching them and thinking they were fun, and the chances that any number of people will actually do that is pretty much nil on YouTube these days. So I'm kind of like, what's the point anyway? So, yeah. Again, like I said, I have, you know, a lot of material. We're virtually done with Gothic. We have like one or two other shorter Let's Plays that we did completely, that I just haven't posted. Let's see. I had one of my I have like two different games that I promised Fornius at some point that I would play, that he pesters me to Let's Play all the time, and I just don't have the heart for it. If people are interested in seeing the footage, I guess say something. It might influence me. I don't know. Obviously nothing will happen immediately. I'm going to go spend the rest of today crying over the fact that I'm not getting married, which is gonna kind of put a crimp in me getting any work of any kind done. But yeah, just wanted to let people know what's been going on with me and why I haven't updated anything for like 3 years. So yeah, sorry about that. Like, I know it's a bit of a downer, but this is what happens when you're a person who has depression. So